He should be unstoppable. He is unstoppable, and yet, somehow, it still doesn't feel like enough. The whistle blows, the net ripples, and the crowd erupts, but behind every goal celebration, there's a silence that lingers just a second long, a subtle pause, a flicker in his eyes. Because when you arrive as a phenomenon, when the world calls you inevitable before you've even proven it, the pressure doesn't wait for a moment of doubt. It waits for success. That's the paradox. When you're built like a machine, people stop caring how hard it is to be won. This is what happens when you break records before you grow into your skin. When the world calls you a robot, a Viking, a monster, they strip the human from the story. At just 22, he didn't just lead a Premier League attack. He reset the standard, shattered goal-scoring charts like they were glass. But here's the bitter irony. The moment he reached the peak, the climb stopped being interesting. Critics didn't ask how he was doing it. They asked why he wasn't doing more. It's a strange kind of suffering, not the pain of failure, but the pain of expectation. Every touch is magnified, every miss, an indictment. Every game where he doesn't score, a narrative, a crack, maybe he's not that special after all. That's the cruel twist of dominance. The better you get, the less grace you're given. The game slows down when you're ahead of it. Defenders don't just mark you, they orbit you. Teams reshape their entire tactics just to clog your space. But the more they scheme, the less fans seem to care, because goals are assumed. Greatness is baked in, and the moment you stop being a surprise, you become a statistic. There's no room for nuance when you're a headline. No one asks if the runs are lonely. No one wonders how it feels to touch the ball 12 times in 90 minutes. They don't see the hours in training, the isolation, the frustration of moving like a ghost in a system that isn't built to love you, only to use you. And when you're that big, that fast, that ruthless, no one's interested in your struggle. They only want your storm. But inside that thunder is something more fragile. A young man watching the world flatten its complexity into a meme, a celebration, a body, a goal tally, and when all anyone sees is the machine, what happens to the person running it? The goals don't lie, but sometimes they don't tell the whole truth either. It's easy to look at the numbers and assume perfection, to see 30, 40, 50 goals and think the machine is humming. But in Manchester's gleaming football laboratory, perfection has a price, because here, the system doesn't revolve around stars. The system is the star. In this world of triangles, control, and microscopic margins, being a world-class striker is not always a position of power. It's a role, a cog, a function. You move where the space tells you to move. You press where the algorithm says to press. And even if you're a once-in-a-generation predator, you still have to wait for your moment, or you vanish inside the system's gears. Pep Guardiola doesn't build around individuals. He builds around ideas, patterns, control. And in a team that breathes possession like oxygen, the chaos of a raw, hungry, vertical striker can feel foreign. That's the tension, because Haaland isn't chaos, but he thrives in it. He's not the guy who takes 80 touches. He's the one who makes to count. He isn't there to complete the pattern. He's there to break it. A single sprint, a single gap, a single finish, but in a team designed to delay risk and maximize control. That kind of ruthlessness can sometimes feel like static. When the ball doesn't come, the cameras still find him standing at the edge of the box, arms out, waiting, watching, trapped between brilliance and boredom, because even with the best midfield in the world behind you, space isn't promised, timing isn't perfect, and if the machine isn't running for you, it's running past you. There's a wordless frustration in that, a kind of suffocation that only elite strikers understand. You're doing the right things, making the right runs, but the game keeps happening somewhere else, in a different rhythm, with different priorities, and when you do get the chance, you're expected to make it count instantly, no warming up, no misfires, because in a team that creates so little chaos, you are the chaos. You're not allowed to misstep. That kind of pressure isn't tactical. It's psychological. He's not being benched. He's not being blamed, but he's being contained by a system that celebrates the pass more than the punchline. And when the tactics don't sing in his key, the striker isn't just isolated. He's invisible. They call it modern football. They call it evolution. But what if the game's most dangerous weapon is slowly being neutralized by the very team that's supposed to unleash him? When the lights hit, they don't just illuminate. They burn. Every glance, every shrug, every moment of silence. It's all content now. A missed chance becomes a Twitter thread. A quiet game sparks a podcast debate. And when you're him, when you're the name scrawled across billboards and TikTok clips and brand campaigns, there's no such thing as privacy, only performance. This is the other side of fame. Not the luxury, not the access, but the surveillance, the endless, suffocating awareness that every gesture is being recorded, interpreted, twisted. Smile too much and you don't care. Look too serious and you've lost your joy. You're either a robot or a diva, never just human. And somewhere in the middle of that storm, there's still a kid who just wanted to score goals. But that version of him, the one who loved the game before it became a marketplace, doesn't get to exist in peace anymore. Because being the guy means you're not just a footballer. You're a product, a storyline, a projection screen for everyone else's expectations. And those expectations don't stop at the pitch. You have to be funny in interviews, charming in ads, inspirational in documentaries, available but not overexposed, confident but not arrogant. And every time you misstep, every time you show a flicker of real emotion, the machine clicks into gear, articles, reels, narratives. Because when you're packaged as a superhero, the world doesn't want to see your bruises. They want to see your fall. This isn't just about media. It's about identity. Who are you when the world is watching all the time? When every interaction is a performance, not for applause, but for judgment? When even your silence gets interpreted as ego? There's a pressure that builds when you can't lose, not publicly, not personally, because the brand can't afford it. The image can't break. But inside that steel exterior, there is still a person. One trying to navigate adolescence and adulthood in front of millions of critics who've never worn boots but know exactly how you should walk. And so the mask hardens, the answers get shorter, the smiles tighter, not because he doesn't care, but because caring in public is dangerous. Vulnerability becomes weakness, emotion becomes ammunition, and before long, you don't know what's real anymore, the myth or the man. He walks into every stadium like a giant, but giants don't get to bend. They don't get to stumble. They only get to break quietly. 50 goals, a golden boot, trophies glinting under stadium lights. By every metric that matters, the job is being done. But if numbers told the whole story, this wouldn't feel so hollow. Because dominance, real, crushing dominance, isn't just about how much you score. It's about how you do it why, and what it means. That's the part the stat sheets can't explain. Tap-ins, rebounds, penalties, efficient, effective, repeatable, and yet somehow unfulfilling. The world sees the total, but he sees the truth. He knows when the goals mattered, when they came, who they came against, and when they didn't. Because the hardest part of being elite is not chasing greatness, it is living with how easily it is misunderstood. People start to question your value while you're still delivering. They call you one-dimensional, say you rely on service, that you're just a finisher, just as if turning half chances into certainties is something anyone could do. But once you reach the top, nuance dies, context fades. You're no longer allowed bad days, not if the numbers stay high. Because people don't look into your performances anymore, they just count them. And when you do everything right and still feel invisible, the hunger changes. The joy of scoring becomes a job, the art becomes arithmetic, and slowly the fire dulls. The goals keep coming, but they stop. Meaning something? It's a strange kind of punishment, being penalized for being too efficient. For making the game look easy, fans forget the brutality behind each movement, the loneliness in the box, the mental strain of waiting, always waiting for your single moment to define an entire match. Strikers live for chances, but they also live with the pressure of scarcity. You touch the ball fewer times than anyone else. You get judged faster than anyone else. And when the numbers mask the struggle, no one sees the man who's suffocating behind his own stats, because success without satisfaction is its own kind of failure. No, the numbers don't lie, but they don't tell the truth either. Not about the frustration, the disconnection, the dissonance between what you're doing and how it's being seen. Goals should bring clarity, but for him, they only bring noise. And when you're scoring more than anyone, but feeling less than ever, the question isn't what is wrong with the game. It's what's wrong with me. Every legend needs a mirror, someone who reflects their fire, someone to chase, to beat, to become. But what happens when you look across the pitch and see no one? Not a villain, not a foil, not an equal, just open space. For over a decade, the game was defined by a duel. Messi and Ronaldo to Titans opposite in style, but identical in obsession. Every goal, every assist, every Ballon d'Or, they weren't just records, they were responses. The rivalry sharpened them, fueled them, gave each of their journeys a meaning larger than themselves. But today, there's no true counterpart, no rival breathing down his neck, no one who ignites the same level of personal fire, and without that edge, even victory can feel numb. This isn't about disrespecting the current generation. There's talent, there's brilliance, but there's no threat, no one haunting his steps, no one pushing him beyond his own ambition. He exists in a vacuum of expectation, climbing a mountain no one else is even on. And when you're the only one at the top, what do you fight against? The psychology of sport is built on challenge, on confrontation. When you're marked by a defender, you're in battle. When you're chased by a rival, you're in story. Without either, you're just running, scoring, repeating. The hunger changes. The pressure doesn't come from outside. It has to come from within. And that's a dangerous shift. Because self-imposed pressure is colder, quieter. It doesn't spark adrenaline. It bleeds into identity. You start needing goals not to win, but to prove you're still you. That's when obsession turns toxic. When dominance feels more like maintenance than greatness. You rate not climbing anymore. You rate protecting a legacy that is still being written. And without a rival to check you, to challenge you, to burn with you, it all starts to feel distant. He wasn't built for comfort. He was built for conquest. But conquest without conflict isn't glory. It's just routine. The world keeps waiting for someone to emerge, a challenger, a name worthy of the headlines, someone to force evolution, not just in skill, but in spirit. But right now, there's only noise, comparisons that don't stick, narratives that don't bite. And until someone rises, really rises, to meet him, this story stays half-written. The goals will keep coming, the records will fall, but without friction, without fire, even greatness starts to lose its shape, because dominance may earn respect, but rivalry, real, searing, personal rivalry, that's what makes history. There's a moment, rare, invisible, irreversible, when success becomes separation. You train, you rise, you break through, and for a while, it feels like ascent, like gravity bending in your favor. But eventually, the air gets thinner, the cheers more distant, the people beside you fewer. That's the part no one tells you, that at the top, it's not louder, it's quieter. He stands on that summit now, surrounded by medals, statistics, contracts, cameras. But the higher he climbs, the less anyone truly sees him. Greatness doesn't just elevate, it isolates. Because when you're this far ahead, teammates can't relate, opponents can't threaten, coaches stop correcting you, friends stop asking how you really feel. You're not part of the group anymore. You're orbiting it. You become something else, and that changes everything. It changes how you carry yourself in the locker room. You can't vent. You can't show doubt. Your silence becomes mystique. Your struggle gets mistaken for arrogance. People don't ask how you're doing. They assume. They fill in the blanks with whatever version of you fits the myth. The truth is, the climb was never just about goals. It was about belonging, about being a part of something, a team, a brotherhood. But now, every glance feels filtered, every conversation guarded. You're no longer one of them. You're him, the brand, the expectation, the standard. And when you carry that kind of weight, there's no one to hand it off to, no one to lean on, no rival to sharpen you, no system built entirely for you, no room to be vulnerable. Just the routine, game, goal, headline, repeat. The same summit, viewed through the same lonely window. So he runs, trains, scores, repeats. And the world claps, again. But inside, there's a silence, a question. One that lingers in the quiet hours after the floodlights shut off. What's left to chase when you've already become the thing everyone else is chasing? That's the tragedy of being too good, too young. The moment of triumph becomes the start of isolation. The crowd fits, but the head beneath it grows heavier, because it's not just about winning anymore. It's about finding something, anything, that still feels like purpose. And until that spark returns, until the fire burns from within again, not just from pressure or praise, every goal will feel a little colder, every win a little flatter, every roar of the crowd a little more distant. Because when you're on top of the world, there's no one left to climb with. You